on a call. Will you shut the door? It's recording it now. Thanks.
Mm, Where did the questions go? There they are. Perfect. All right, so I am here with Grace List, the Assistant Athletic Director of Compliance at Indiana University. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. All right, so to start off, can you kind of just walk me through your educational and career journey and what led you to a career in athletic compliance?
Yeah, and you probably hear this from everybody you talk to in compliance that not everybody has like a clear path. It's always different. Um, I went to undergrad at Belmont in Nashville and I studied music business, sort of this is back to the beginning. And I thought I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. Maybe I played a lot of instruments, so like, oh, this would be so cool. I could, do music law. Um, with the plan to obviously go to law school. So I ended up going to Indiana for law school. I'm from Indiana, so I was like excited to come home. Um, and I was doing a lot of, I had done an undergrad and in college, like copyright law, um, entertainment law class, like contract law, things that you would need for entertainment law. And I was involved with Sports and Entertainment Law Society, which was a just affiliation group in school. And so one of the things that they put on was a panel that had different people. One of those people was a director of compliance here at IU named Andy. Um, I at the same time was in a class for law school. They made us we did a class called like there's a variety of things, but part of the class was thinking about your like personal values and what you wanted out of a career. They were trying to keep people from the burnout and high rates of death by suicide that are happening in the legal field and drug use, alcoholism, those sorts of things. So they're like, oh, think about what you really want. Is this the career you want? What aligns with what are your personal values? And so that class kind of made me think about like what was important to me. And as part of that, they made you do informational interviews like this with people that in industries or careers that you thought you wanted. So I ended up asking Andy if he'd interview me or if I could interview him, just to learn about what he did and like what compliance was, kind of thinking that maybe I could do, expand entertainment law to be sports and entertainment law. He then said that they had an internship over the summer. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I should look into that. So a little bit naive because as you're working with the compliance office at Ball State, you're probably aware that it's not really sports law. I guess in this era of house and stuff, it's gotten more like sports law, but compliance itself is not like we're doing fake law, as I like to say. We're fake sports lawyers. So anyway, but I ended up getting the internship with compliance. And I really was enjoying my time, kind of trying to figure out, is this what I want? Like, this isn't sports law. Do I want this instead of entertainment law? Um, as I was interning, like I said, I had been taking a lot of these entertainment law classes, and I took a class. It was a practicum class, and it was once a week. It was like the spring of my second year of law school, and it was like really what you would do as an entertainment lawyer. Our professor was an entertainment lawyer. He had a firm, and he brought in clients that couldn't like pay. So we were doing pro bono work for him basically, and doing the research we would do, and like helping them with their issues. I hated that class. I thought it was the worst. I hated doing the research. I like thought everything was terrible. So I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I'd rather be in compliance office, like scanning papers, which is like the worst as we know, than like, because we were going from paper to like a digital like database. If you're familiar, like you guys use ARMS, I think, but like there's a thing called Jump Forward. It was like digitizing everything. So I was like, I was like, I would rather be in the office doing that than like doing this class. And this is what I'm supposed to do for my career. And so it kind of like clicked with me that I wanted to do compliance. And so that's sort of how I got into the industry. Um, that was a long story, I guess. But and then you want to talk about career?
Yeah, just
Okay.
what led you into your career? I mean, yeah, I feel like
Oh,
you
okay, perfect. I didn't know that it was like the career path too. So if it was a two-part question.
but what roles did you have before this one, and how did those experiences help shape your path?
1 second, let me pause. I need to blow my nose.
Like,
And sorry it's in your recording, but I'll mute myself. Okay, I'm back.
Perfect.
You know when your nose is stuffed up and you realize all of a sudden you can't breathe because you're like talk when you're talking, you're like eating and you're like, I really can't.
I'm just now getting over a sickness. It's
Oh, rough. Hopefully it's smooth sailing from here on out.
yeah.
It stays warm and, you know, I know they say the weather doesn't give you sickness, but I think it does. Anyway, careers. Okay, so careers. I when I first got out of compliance, I or got out of compliance. When I first graduated law school, I ended up working for a company called NACTA. If you're I think Ryan's pretty involved with NAC, so hopefully involved with him. They have an internship experience. It's like 1 year long. And so I interned with them because I didn't really know, as you heard in my compliance story, I didn't really um know any other places about compliance. Like I didn't know anything except IU compliance, and I didn't know anything except being an intern at IU. So I was like, maybe I should like get to know other people in the industry, like figure out other offices, how they work, what they do. And so in this role, I sort of was the intern for NAC. And it wasn't like I went to the schools and like saw how they did stuff, but I did build a huge network of people, just like recognizing my name. My maiden name is Falkenbach, and so it was a lot. Like everyone was like, I know your name. And I'm like, yeah, I send you emails, and my name is like pretty like you're like, that name sounds familiar. So I think that really helped. You know, you complained about your last name, but it was great. And so that was like kind of like stepping stone back into compliance. I was then worked at Ohio in Athens, well, Ohio in the MAC for 2 years. Two people in our office. I was not Ryan. I was like the director of compliance. And then I went to Louisville for about a year and a half. It was kind of over COVID. So I, as you know at Ball State, like you get a little bit of everything when you're there, like at Mac school. And so then at Louisville, I was like, we had 8 people in our office. And so there were like 3 of us doing monitoring stuff for our teams. And so I went into really deep into like the monitoring recruiting stuff. So back at a big school doing that kind of stuff. Then I ended up in which I wanted to be in Cincinnati. So you kind of like look at the path. It was like Cleveland to Athens to Louisville. So then I was in Cincinnati at Xavier.
Oh,
And I was there for a little over a year. Um, and again, back in a two-person office, so doing a little bit of everything. Um, great, like great boss. And like again, small like community it's also like a private school, but just like small, all the coaches. It's like how it is at Ball State or like at Ohio. And then Eric, who's my boss now at Indiana, he asked me to apply for his assistant AD, like number 2 position, and thought I would be good. So ended up taking this position where I am now.
awesome. 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 I find it so fascinating how compliance can just take you anywhere.
Yeah, it's wild. And there are people that like I've stayed really like regional, and like there are people that will like I was just looking at somebody that had like quite a growth trajectory, and they went from like Texas to like I don't know, like the East Coast to like now they're on the West Coast. Like it's like
It's
yeah.
a wild field for sure. So what does a typical day look like for you in your role?
Um, it never this is the hard part because the question is like not really
Yeah.
a typical day, and you're probably getting that, seeing that. I probably try to start out with a plan of what my day is, and then it doesn't go that way. Um, but I am in charge of doing rules education here, and so since we have a little bit more staff, we try to do monthly coaches rules education. Like we will have a meeting. Well, usually we do them at the beginning of the month, 2 meetings, and coaches who can come to whichever one they can come to, and we just like cover a gambit of topics. So it's like sometimes we have an agenda, and then we have like a PowerPoint that will you that month, whatever the topic is, and so I'll create that, or like we like to create a lot of tip sheets. Ryan's taken some of my tip sheets, so you might have seen them changed. Maybe you saw them Ball stated. They're all like very IU, but like a quick like 1 page thing to be able to give to coaches or student athletes or even recruits that like this is a summary of the rules. It's like easier to read than like a whole long email with all of our words. And so kind of like spend time making tip sheets. That's something I'm working on right now, whether it's like updating them or like making new ones that we don't have.
Mhm.
So that's something I do a lot. I also it feels like a lot of times, so um we used to have two people that did eligibility, and Jenny just left in August, and so Brooke was really doing initial eligibility and then like a variety of things, and then she rolled into Jenny's position, and Jenny was doing, transfer stuff, helping with continuing eligibility, and doing football, eligibility, and then Brooke kind of took on all of the eligibility, but it's her like first time doing the transfer stuff and the continuing stuff, and so I oversee APR and then also. Um, Kind of help her with the hard or talk through eligibility things. So like a lot of days it will be like talking about, okay, what are the steps for getting someone eligible? Or like what do we need to consider for this person? Or like doing waivers for a lot of my time recently this year has been doing waivers for our swimmers, whether it's some weird situation of a swimmer that needs to get eligible, or it's like somebody is an Olympian and they want to be less than full time, and so we're doing a waiver for that. So just a variety of eligibility issues with swimming. But yeah, it's sort of and then I oversee the intern, so like a lot of times I'll check in with our intern Gabby, who's not really an intern anymore now, she's part-time, but um or we're hiring an intern for the summer because they make our beginning of the year student athlete education. We have them do a video. And so it's a student athlete that gets hired over the summer to make that video. So we are wrapping up that hiring process, and he'll get started here next month. So um yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, perfect. So which responsibilities of yours are more routine and which ones are more like unpredictable or challenging?
I mean, I think that like a lot of them, like waivers are always unpredictable and challenging because you just don't know when that's going to happen. Um, I mean, the education piece is probably like a little more routine, like sending things out. When Before Jenny left, I had a little more time. I'd send like a weekly one to all coaches and staff, and so I do that like maybe once a month now. Um, we send out, um, like I'd send out a parent email for all the football and basketball teams. Like when they would do away games, I'd like do a little like a newsletter for those parents with some like with a compliance tip. I haven't been doing that this year, kind of like stepped back from that with our staffing change, but because we didn't like backfill once Jenny left and Brooke rolled up, we didn't backfill her old position. So that's part of the problem is it. So yeah, it's like working on tip sheets. Those are a little more routine. It's not always like a set schedule for them, but that's just a little more routine of like what I'm doing and updating ed stuff. And everything else is just like I have an APR question, I have a eligibility scenario, I have a weird coach, like the recruiting stuff, like the coaches just asking interpretive questions about what they can do, what they can't do. Like those are always like the random things that you don't know, like what the question's going to be or what rabbit hole you're going to go down that day.
Yeah, absolutely. So what makes working in athletic compliance unique compared to the other areas within college athletics?
I think the biggest thing is that we talk to every person in the department, which is unique to, and that's not to say that other people in departments don't talk to each other, but we truly interact with and have a role with every department, not just staff, but also every team and also every student athlete. Like we had a touch point with them, whether it's getting them in or doing if they have a question, or if they're leaving, putting it in the portal, something like that. I think that's a unique part of compliance. And we also have a bunch of ties outside of the department, so it's just a good broad overview of the department. And uh, you get to see risk areas and pressure points and positive, like, just like you get to see all these inner workings of things because you work with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does your role fit into the overall structure and mission of the athletic department?
I use that our mission, our values are that we are people of integrity that play by the rules. So I think that like, but I mean, obviously it's like in there. I think that, but you can have words as your mission statement and not necessarily words are all fine and dandy. It's what you actually do that has to like align with it. So I think, you know, compliance in general should be fitting into the structure of an athletic department because, and again, it's based on leadership and how they set it up, but like ultimately we're hopefully there to be your teammates and help you guys do things the right way and help you win in the right way so that we don't get in trouble. So we're here to like protect you from yourselves and from, if you want to, you're like, I don't care, I don't about the risk of this violation, or I don't care, I'm just going to do this. But then like somebody else, what's the risk of someone else seeing it? Well, what is the actual risk of that choice in general? Like, you know, so regardless of what the words are and even what the actions are, I think that's kind of how compliance can fit into any structure is being that like safeguard from others and ourselves.
Yeah. 100%. So what are some typical entry-level roles in athletic compliance and where are they usually posted?
I think it really varies these days. It used to be pretty clear it was like compliance coordinator, but like the title I think is varies. I think it can be whatever it is. Um, but like the is it called collegiate sports connection or something like that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Those people always have jobs posted. Um, yeah, Collegiate Sports Connect. Linked D1 ticker, always good. I specifically signed up for getting which you can in the D1 ticker. You can sign up to get specific, like I asked for compliance jobs. So I get a summary of compliance jobs that are posted because obviously on the ticker it's every job. And like I'm like, I don't care about marketing or whatever. So there's that. The NCAA marketplace or whatever that place is, whatever that actual title is, that is always a good place to get them. But it's hard to filter, or it used to be hard to filter for compliance because everyone says compliance in the job title or in the job like requirements.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the other parts are like being engaged in knack, and I think you kind of mentioned that you know it. Like people post their jobs on the community all the time. Um, and I think the biggest piece is just relationship building and people so many times like will be like, "Hey, do you have any entry level names? Do you have any like anybody who's like looking for a job that you think would be good? Do you have anybody, you know?" So it's just like building those relationships and maintaining them. And doing a good job at your current job so that people will, so Ryan will like speak highly of you when he gets asked, or when Laura gets asked, she'll speak highly of you.
Yeah. So what key skills or qualifications do you think are essential for someone entering the compliance field?
Oh, so I would say it's sort of more general, like work skills. I don't know that like compliance can be kind of taught and it's changing so much that I don't know that like obviously having an understanding of it is helpful, but it's not like you have to know all the compliance skills or policies and procedures. I think it's willing to be a problem solver. It's willing to be, you know, when someone asks you a stupid question, not stupid, but like off the wall question, that's not in the manual. And then you go to LSDBI and you look at the interps, and it might not even be an interp or an EdCom. Like it's not even tied to it. So then you need to start looking at waivers. You need to start looking at violations. You need to start looking at like, I don't know, are you willing to call people that you know? Like it's just being able to like be a problem solver. I think it is someone in is they need to be someone that's willing to learn and willing to be flexible. We might think that we know everything, but we like there's always things that are different. And even no matter how long you've been here, like and been in it, I might be able to tell you the number of the bylaw that something is, but that doesn't mean like I know the actual answer. And sometimes your gut is different because it's changed or whatever. So, being willing to like be flexible and continue to learn. Um, I think it's also important to this is one thing that took me a long time to learn, and I don't know how you distill this skill into one word, but being okay saying I don't know, like being okay saying I will get back to you. And I think it's important that you have good, strong communication skills because you have to talk to a lot of people that don't communicate the same way that you do. Right now you're filling out all of your schoolwork and responding to your professors in like a professional way and you're, APA format, all those things. Like you want to send a good email, but then you like try to talk to a coach and you send an email with all these words and they like come back to you and ask you a question that was literally just in your email and you're like, okay, I gotta like bullet point, bold. I need to be more succinct. I need to whatever. Like I think there's and then talking to student athletes, you'll like maybe you'll say something and they're just like glaze over. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, how can you distill this down into something basic? So I think or you're talking to people on campus and you're trying to like explain compliance in a way that like they would get it when they haven't been in athletics. Like student athletes are in athletics, so they have that context, but they might not understand the legalese of compliance. Whereas someone on campus might understand the legalese of compliance, but they don't understand the context of athletics or how things work. So it's like being able to communicate. And like I said, then just being willing, being okay, like not knowing answers and being okay communicating that to people because it always, yeah. I felt like I always had to know the answer, like as a new person, like, okay, I'll eventually know the answer to everything. And like, I feel bad that they have to wait for me, but like, surprise, surprise, I don't know the answers and it keeps changing. So I'm like, well, I thought I knew the answer, but I think it's different. So I'll get back to you. So
That's one thing that surprised me when I first started my internship is like when coaches would come in, they would, Ryan is always usually in a meeting, very busy guy. So they would
yeah.
deal with our director of compliance, Jared. He'd
Uh-huh.
always be like, I don't know. I mean, I can email you here soon and give you the answer, but right now I just don't know.
Let me look it up. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like it should be clear because it's like, oh, there's a book with the rules. Like you just know them and then you know the rules. But again, the rules are not that straightforward. And even when you have a question and you think it's straightforward, it's like it's not because the rules themselves don't apply to all the situations of the questions that the coaches are asking. And they were written in like 1999, so like none of the rules really make sense anymore.
So how would you describe your leadership or management style when working with others in the department?
Yeah, I think my goal is like be a good teammate. Um, People use a lot of like leadership buzzwords and like I'm going to use one, but like I really think that servant leadership is important. I'm not necessarily the head of this office, but like being willing to do your research or being willing to like do the like rote work of like whatever it is, something silly. Um, I had at Louisville, we had two kind of like administrate like the head of the office and then another guy that was like more broad picture too and also on senior staff, but he wasn't like the head of the office. And so and then there was like at the bottom of our 8-person office was like us monitoring people. And one of the monitoring guys was at a baseball game. And so we did comp ticket approval. So the kids would put in their guests in arms and we would have to approve them. And so he was like they were at the baseball tournament and so the kids had been putting in their guests for like the next, it was like after the game, they were putting in their guests for the next day because they, for the ticket window was open. And the two like boss guys were there, and then the bottom kid, Daniel. And Daniel was doing that, and the head boss guy was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Do you need help?" And he's like, "Oh, that'd be so great." So the head of the office, John, like went in and was like, doing ticket approvals with Daniel. And then the other guy didn't quite have that same leadership philosophy and he was like off, talking to somebody or doing something different. And like that wasn't his priority, so he wasn't doing it. But it was like that like speaks to that like that's the sort of leader that I want to be like. How can I help you? Like, it's not too stupid for me to just like get in and approve ticket guests, which takes 5 seconds and is like Daniel's monitoring job. Like, you are like so important you should not like you're not doing these little things. But John was like, yeah, like he was willing to help anybody do that. So I think that is important, even if it's not just compliance, but like in working with the departments, marketing is out there every night at every game, like working till 9 at night. Like if they need help, like rolling t-shirts, or if you're meeting with them and you need to just like even brighten their day, whatever it is, like I think like being willing to like, hey, I'm here, I'm a helper, I can do what I can assist in any way you need. Like I'm not too good to help with that if I have bandwidth. Um, or and then also kind of like and I don't know if it's like leadership, but I'm sort of the external person of our department, if that makes sense, with being like education. So like I'm a lot of times the person that does education for the external departments. And I think it's like not acting like you're too good to or that you're better than them because you like know the rules or something. Like no question is too stupid. Like I would rather you ask me a basic question than like have a violation and making sure that people feel comfortable talking to you and feel comfortable knowing that you're going to give them a good, like thoughtful, considered, and clear answer that is like communicated in a way they can understand
Yeah, absolutely.
without being like rude,
Mhm.
condescending is the word I was trying to come up with.
Okay, so how do you apply the four functions of management, which is planning, organizing, leading, and evaluating in your daily work as a compliance professional?
So I was reading through these questions and I was like, oh my God, these are really like intense academic questions. I was like, I don't know. I should probably think about these. And then I didn't think about this question because this is one I really was like, I don't know if I know the answer to. Um, I think it's probably like sometimes like the word management makes you feel like you're like a boss of somebody and you're like, but like man, it could be self-management, right? Like constantly you're like planning. So one of the things we have, and I've done a terrible job this year doing it, is we plan out our education. We have a calendar and like it hasn't every time that we do something, I like put it in the calendar so that we can have a historical, like if someone were to ask when did you do XYZ, we would have it in this like publisher calendar. And so there's that, there's like planning it out. Then it's like organizing it. Like, okay, when are we going to do it? What topic is it going to be? That kind of stuff. Then you have like whether I'm doing the leading piece is, of course, like, am I doing it or am I giving it to someone else to do? And if they're doing it, then like, how do I make sure that I'm like helping them like actually do their thing? So like, especially working with the interns, giving them projects and like making sure I'm being clear in what my expectations are. Um, Sometimes I can like soften my language to not sound so direct. And so 'cause I don't want to be mean. And then it doesn't always like come up. They didn't quite understand what I needed because I was like, or I'm too like, I haven't actually made a decision, so I'm trying to explain it to them, and they're like, "Well, what do you want me to do with this?" And then they're like, "That seems wild," and I'm like, "Okay, maybe that did seem wild now that I've talked it out with you, but like that was helpful." So I think all like, but leading a lot of things, and then you evaluate how did it go? How could I do this better? Like, how did you do? Like, where can we make improvements? So like, I mean, I think it's something that constantly happens on a naturally, not necessarily in a not to use the word planned because it's in here, but I don't necessarily plan those four steps, but it happens kind of
Yeah,
in a natural way. The answer to how do I stay organized?
very similar. Yeah.
I don't
Oh, no, that's fair.
no, but I think it is pretty similar. It's like we try to always like have calendars and things like that and plans. We also have staff meetings, so that's like once a week. It helps like, hey, this is what you need to be thinking about. This is something coming down the pike. So like how could we, and it's always just like trying to think ahead and be like, this is what I'm going to do. And then so much in compliance, somebody will come in and there's like a major fire that puts off the big you trying to get ahead of things. But um, yeah, the good news is that there are lots of us. So I feel so much for Ryan in your office having a small office is that there's like lots of us to help kind of like pick up the pieces or like keep us on track.
So what advice would you give to a grad student like myself who's interested in working in athletic compliance?
I think I've sort of hit a lot of it with like the communication, not thinking that you're too good, like being willing to, I think also just like I'm not saying work for free. This is because that's not like feasible, but I think just like being willing to do jobs that might seem like they're beneath you. Like in a way like, oh, you're an intern, but we're just gonna need you to scan papers. Like that might seem stupid to you, but I think like, and it is, it's annoying. It's very helpful, and but it is like, I don't want to say stupid, but it's so rote and can be so boring. But take those opportunities to figure out like, how can I use this to my benefit? When
Yeah,
I This is gonna sound so corny because everyone says this, but I remember like every time I would scan papers because I didn't know anything about compliance, I would like read. Also, I'm nosy. I would like read all the papers that I was scanning. Like, what is this? What's this form? What's going on? What are we doing with this? Like, oh, is this an email I'm scanning in? Like, what did they say? Yeah, again, nosy, but like then I started picking up things on like, this is what a medical hardship is, or like, oh, this is a roster ad form that we use, or things like that, just to like, and you have more exposure to this than I did. It's I would imagine, but just like using those sorts of opportunities to do that. And yeah, like I said, compliance is all about people that you know. It's a pretty small industry, and I'm not saying you need to kiss babies and, you know, shake hands and, be like a a development person if that's not your personality, or be more extroverted than you are. But I think building genuine relationships, even if it's a small number of people, you just is so helpful and will get you very far.
Absolutely.
Um, and yeah, like be a good person, do your job, and then, all that comes with all the rest will help.
Okay, so are there any certifications, workshops, or training you'd recommend strengthening my resume or skill set?
I don't know that I would say I have thoughts. I don't know your specific, I don't think I have your specific resume. And so like what would help you specifically? But there used to be a compliance certification thing that we did, and then we took it off because people weren't paying for it. And it was like, anyway, that was a long time ago. It was like a summary of all the rules. Um, Honestly, it's like when you can go to stuff. Like
Mhm.
if you're a NAC member, they're doing a spill the tea session in a few weeks. Like go to that. There's going to be a NAC webinar about CABMA, CABMA business office. Sorry, I said CABMA, like people just know what that means. Business office compliance, like our relationship, living in the gray. How do you strengthen that relationship? There's going to be like I think any of those NAC things are helpful. NAC sends out educational materials every month about like tip sheets or whatever, like read those, look at those, use those. Um, I think a lot of it is like staying up to date on the news. I'm terrible at doing it, but reading or skimming the D1 ticker. Um, if you don't have that, I would use that. Um, you don't get the D1 ticker. There's like an eligibility center newsletter you can also sign up for, so that's helpful to give you eligibility center updates and like not just like this is what's on your IRL, but like this is what's happening at the eligibility center. So like knowing that. Um, and then I think it's like again, a lot of it, yes, there's stuff compliance specific. I think some of that's just being in it. Um, if you can go to regional rules, I would go to that because it's free and easy. It's an indie. If you can go to NAC, that's great. I know budget constraints aren't always possible. Um, but as you get more in the industry, they always try to do stipends and they're sort of expanding that. So try to apply for stipends to go to those sorts of things. Because even if you're not regional rules, you will learn stuff. NAC, you will learn some stuff, but it's more like compliance professionals talking. But again, it's about building relationships and showing your face and like being around, for lack of a better term. Um, we, but um, I think so much of it is just like your professional skill set. Like, what does there are so many little courses and things that you can often do with your like being a student, like or at IU they gave us like LinkedIn education courses. So there's stuff on like communication, stuff on diversity, stuff on I don't leadership, like so many random little like courses you can take through there, and I haven't really done any of them, but like look at what those offerings are, especially as you're a student and you have access to all these things. Like, is there a skill that you think you need to be better at? Whatever it is, like how can you, or there's something you want to know more about, like how can you make yourself a better professional just in general? Um, Also Excel is really important. Learn how to use Excel. I don't, not that you don't know, but like we use a lot of spreadsheets for stuff, and if you know how to make a formula, it's helpful
Yeah, absolutely.
or color code or like for initial eligibility evaluations people made really cool ones also for like financial aid like
Mhm.
it's like yeah if you know Excel it can be helpful.
Yeah, some of the formulas that we have at Ball State, when I first got in, I was like, what is this?
You're like I don't
Like, there's no chance I'm going to understand this. Luckily, I got the hang of it, but
just drag and drop you don't need another formula drag and drop
yeah.
and then put it on a flash drive when you leave so that you have it and you can just use it again you don't have to remake it.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Take from the places that you go. When you like if you like when you get a new job in compliance, if it's not Ball State, just like take everything you had from Ball State, like the forms, the tip sheets, the things that you thought were good or maybe you didn't think were good, but you're really familiar with, and that's how you use them and see like then you can use those. Like I had so much stuff that I like forgot to take with me from other places. And then you have to like which people will always be like, "Hey, can I have that form that we used? Can I?" And they'll like give it to you, but
Yeah.
build up your own Rolodex of stuff.
So have you ever faced a major ethical dilemma in your role, and how did you handle it, if so?
I mean, I think a lot of our compliance job is a bit of an ethical dilemma. There's always like, oh, did I see this violation? Like how much, like you're always obligated to submit violations, but there's sort of a, I don't want to say like this is recorded, but sometimes you're like, there really starts to come a point where you're like, okay, you had two of the exact same violation. Like we told you to take this one down, whether it's like social media, and we're gonna submit this other violation, but like not submit both violations, or we're gonna like okay, this happened. We're just going to move forward and be better moving forward and not submit these like historical violations, whatever it might be. So I think sometimes those are like comments and questions about ethical dilemmas in general that happen. Um, we did have when I was at Ohio, I got a question. So the rule has changed, but at the time, only basketball and football could pay for parents to come on official visits.
Mhm.
Um, and all the other sports could not pay. They could only pay for the recruit to come on a visit. So the volleyball staff, which now it's public, so it's fine. The volleyball staff was talking to me and they were asking about paying for a parent of an international student to come. And I was like, I don't, and sometimes, and maybe you felt this, like, an answer, it's like obvious, but then like someone like asks you a question and you're like, well, I don't, well, now that you're asking, I'm confused. So then I like look at it and I'm very confused. And they're like, because they were ethical people, they were like, I was like, you can't, I don't think you can pay for parents. I'm like, well, we've been paying for parents for like years. Like, we've paid for the parents of like lots of people, like, that were really like not every parent, but like, international students or like students who were really poor and like were their parents were never gonna be able to come. Like, we've like paid for them. And I was like, I don't think that's correct. And then like having to like share that with my supervisor and be like, I think this is an issue. And like, I don't know how you've never noticed it, but like our form didn't ask for like, are you paying for flights? Are you paying for like, but it didn't like necessarily like break down like who are you buying the flights for or like what's the transportation? It would be marked off and like who's coming and be like the PSA and their parents, but like it didn't like clarify who we were paying transportation for. And so it turned out, which funny, my boss was the one who had been approving them before, and then I got to this and they had been. I was like, we can't do this, and then we kind of had to like turn that in, and then it turned in being a major violation. And it's actually funny because I ended up leaving around the time that like the investigation was sort of happening, but I wasn't like actively involved in it. And then I left. And then there was a major infraction that came out, which it's a long process, so it took a long time anyway. And in the beginning of the major infraction, it's like a compliance person or like the director of compliance, like the staff asked the director of compliance about paying for this and they were like, you can't do that. And then they admitted they've been paying for it for years. And I'm like, that was me. I was the director of compliance that was in that major infraction, but like it's not my name and I was not interviewed or anything. But like, how wild. I'm in a major infraction.
That's all.
But I don't know, like that's like hard too because the ethical dilemma of like I really liked those people and they were really kind and they were really ethical. So it was like they just wanted to be like, no, my gosh, we're not trying to be rude here. Like we're not trying to be break rules here. And so like trying to like kind of be like, okay, but we have to, we have to start investigating this. We have to like, I have to turn this out over. So those sorts of things I think happen a lot. That was like an obvious answer that became major infraction, but those sorts of things do happen.
Right. So how do you balance building trust with coaches and athletes while still enforcing the rules and regulations?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot, it's kind of silly phrase, is an emotional bank account. I don't know if you've heard of this phrase before, but like the idea that you invest in them as people and as friends, or maybe you're not friends, maybe you don't get along that well, but like going to their games, going to their practices, meeting them where they are, asking them about their kids and not just their sport or whatever it is, their life, their dog, um and like building those relationships so that then when you do have to say something bad, you can like you have something to draw from and it's not just like I only talk to you when it's something bad. The other piece is being like showing that you are a teammate and you are trying to get to yes. Like I'm your teammate. I have the same goal as you. but the goal is to win the right way. Like we can't, and maybe you're not really that ethical. So that's where it gets hard when the coach really is like, I don't care about winning the right way. I just want to win. Like, but ultimately, like I'm here to protect you, right? Like we talked about earlier. And so like when they ask you questions, you respond to them. If they ask you questions and you're like, I'm gonna try to figure out an answer, or here's what you're really trying to do, and here's what we can do with what you want to do, or like, how can we talk through this to get you to a yes, or what guardrails do we put so but you can do your thing? And then like they know that you're on their side trying to get it done. If they call you and you're like, no, you can't do that, and they're like, well, and you're like, no, and you're not willing to like try, then they're not going to think that you really care about them and you're just trying to get out the easy answer, like not do more work. So like really showing them that you're interested in like helping them. Even if you think whatever they want to do is stupid, which a lot of times the coaches have wild ideas. Um, it's like, okay, I will take this up the flagpole or really less of that. Like I'll take this into the manual and like I'll look through and see what we can figure out. So I think the hard part is when other departments want to use us as a scapegoat to be like, can you say no? And then it's like, well, then I'm having a hard time. Then that's putting my relationship with coaches like kind of on the back burner because you want me to say no so you don't have to say no. Which sometimes we do that for other departments though too. We're like, if you need to blame us, you can blame us so that you don't have to get in trouble. So it's like kind of both ways.
Yeah, that's
Build
fair.
relationships with those people too.
So what systems, databases, or software platforms do you use to help manage and track compliance requirements?
We use the Teamworks platform, so we use Teamworks and ARMS. Um, and then of course the NCAA apps system.
Mhm. Yeah, I figured that one would be a pretty quick answer.
Yeah.
So what has been the most rewarding moment in your compliance career so far?
Um, this is small, but recently something happened that I was speaking to someone and she was like, yeah, I've been following your career since we like met briefly at that football game in 2016. And I was like, oh my God, what? And that was like very like, oh my God, I feel so honored. That just like felt special in that moment. But um probably one of the most was like, and it's because you remember because you're like, I don't know, I'm sure there's lots of things. But when I was at Ohio, there's a kid who had been injured in high school. And because of that hadn't been able to compete in a sport for his two like last 2 years of high school or last year of high school. And so then wasn't recruited to college because and wasn't able to participate in like even the first 2 years of college really didn't. And then was like well enough to be able to um try to like be a part of the team. Long story short, it was like a lot of back and forth, had to appeal it, but like especially him and his parents both, we were able to like get him back both of those seasons, which was pretty cool. Because they were like, well, you're not on a team. And it's like, yeah, he wasn't on a team because he wasn't recruited, because he wasn't able to be recruited because he was injured. Like I don't, and the injuries just kept compounding and like making it impossible. So it was like, but it was pretty cool, um, that it worked out. That felt good.
That's awesome. What does career progression typically look like in compliance, and what's next for you personally?
Um, it varies. I think um it's like sort of it depends on what you want, right? What's your end goal? Like, do you want to be I go back to like what are your values and what's important to you? Like, do you want to be at a big school? Do you want to be at a small school? Like, do you want to be doing like a mile wide and a foot deep, or do you want to go a mile deep and only a foot wide? It's like if you're at a you might be able to like the difference between Louisville experience and like Ohio experience. But and that's not do you want to be in like Power Five? Do you want to be in or whatever we're called now, A4, mid-major, like where do you want to be also, or is there like a location? So I think all that to say kind of affects your career progression. So I mean, I think though it's sort of like just moving up from like an entry level position, your first position to like having a little more on your plate, a little more in-depth stuff, then maybe having oversight of someone and then maybe being the oversight of the office, but it doesn't always go in that progression. And then I think it's too like you start getting other stuff. Oh, I like doing this revenue share stuff, and then you kind of move to rev share or you do NIL. The great thing is that we talked about like we work with every department is I think you can kind of go anywhere from compliance. So, um,
Okay, good.
yeah, go ahead.
Looking back, is there anything you wish you had done differently earlier in your career?
Um, I wish I would have been better about saying I don't know. Um, I like interesting because I kind of think that like everything always works out in the way that it's supposed to work out. Um, so I'm not really sure if I'll think on this, and if I have something better, I'll come back to you. I'll email it to you.
Perfect. Okay, and the last question I have for you is, how has working in athletic compliance shaped your perspective on leadership and your role in student athlete success?
I think that I got into it because I liked it and I thought it was like fun and it was like, oh, I can help people. I think it's sort of, I think any industry, maybe it's more obvious in athletics, you can kind of see like who's leading for the right reasons, who's in it for the money, who's in it for the power. Like there is like a big, as at a lot of places, but I think it's maybe easier to take advantage of in a way that like a lot of people are here for like the power, the fame, the whatever it is, like even like administrators. And I think it's like hard too, but important to keep the focus on like student athletes and like it really is like the other thing that I've learned a lot about leadership and about myself is that like integrity is important. And so like I think a good leader is somebody that abides by the words that they say. That's somebody that has, whatever your mission statement is, whatever, especially like I was thinking like 80s or presidents and stuff, but like even at a smaller everybody can be a leader. That's always what everyone says. But I think like tr like, the leadership of the department or your office is like if you have a philosophy or a mission or a purpose, like a good leader is going to follow that. And even if it's not a mission that you agree with or whatever, like, yeah, find a place that you agree with it. But if it's not a mission you agree with, like, you at least like I hope that the leaders have the integrity to follow that mission that they have written down. So, um, and I think you can always you are helping student athletes, even if you don't realize it, by helping the coaches, by helping them win, by helping answer those questions, because you're going to get questions from everybody, leadership and life skills, marketing, all that stuff. Um, but I think you can also keep them in mind when you're making your decisions. Sometimes that gets lost in the fray of what's going on. So, um, yeah, this is sort of, I don't know if those are a real true answer to your question, but
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with
you're
me. I
so
learned.
welcome.
It was,
Awesome. Yeah. If you have any other questions, feel free. You can reach out via email, something. And if I come up with anything better about what I would have done differently in the beginning of my career,
okay. Perfect.
I'll tell you.
Perfect. Perfect.
Are you oh, we're so anyway. Are you graduating in May?
I'm not. No.
Okay.
I am going to graduate in May of 26. Yep.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So is this your first year of grad school then?
It is. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Are you liking it?
Yeah. So some classes, I already know what I want to do. So some of the classes that I'm taking are
Yeah. And do you want to be compliance or is that what is your career goal? Okay.
compliance. Yep.
Okay, why compliance?
I just, honestly, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do up until my internship, really,
Uh-huh.
um, I knew I wanted to work in sport, obviously. I didn't know which sector. I worked in high school sports, recreational sports, and college sports.
Uh-huh.
Um, I just like the team aspect
Hmm.
of like I mean, obviously, like high school, there's always a team aspect of that as well, rec sport as well. But at the high school level, you got to deal with the parents. That it's a lot more political as to where in college, it's just you're all there for a common goal. Let's complete that common goal, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you also have like less people in the high school world. You got like, your AD, your assistant AD maybe, and then like the coaches, but they're like part-time, so it's not you can't quite have the same camaraderie that you can in
it.
in the college area. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.